Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here for Juggernaut Training Systems. Today I want to talk to you about the coaches that have influenced my coaching development the most. I've been writing my own program since I was about 14 years old, with a couple exceptions, a little bit of time in college and a little bit of time being coached by the great Josh Bryant. I started coaching high school football and running our off-season program for high school football and track when I was 19 years old. I kept coaching high school football through the rest of my college career, and then opened Juggernaut shortly after my 22nd birthday, and this year I'll turn 35. So I'm, I guess, not as young as I used to be, but still on the younger side of things. Have been doing this for quite some time, and there's been some really important influences to my development as a coach and sort of the way that I do things now. My background is really in sport performance coaching. Powerlifting is something that came later on. I started powerlifting when I was 23, just turned 23, did my first meet when I was 24. So everything prior to that was all about sport performance, though there were powerlifting influences. So there's pretty much 4 phases of my coaching development that I'll separate out today. That's in my high school era, when I was just learning about training, and then in college, and more so the second half of college, and this is when I began coaching a lot of other people, being a high school coach. Even though when I was in high school, because we didn't have any formalized strength and conditioning program, I was running my own program. I was doing pretty well with that. So I started helping out other guys on our team, and when I was a senior, writing programs for like some of the sophomores and juniors. So we have the high school era, the college era, then we'll say early Juggernaut, and then second half of Juggernaut. So kind of the first 5 or 6 years of Juggernaut, and now the second 6 or 7 years of Juggernaut. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. Make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the channel. So in the high school era, I started high school, I'm 5'8", 175 pounds when I started high school, kind of just like a little chubby, mid-pubescent boy. And on my freshman football team, I was maybe the 3rd best offensive lineman on my freshman football team. So really, there was nothing outstanding, but I knew that lifting weights in the off season was going to be a helpful thing to me, that it was something I'd always been interested in, even back to when I was a little kid, from Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and Rocky movies and all that stuff. I knew I wanted to lift. I was always looking up to my older brother, thinking that when he was in high school, he's 12 years older than me, that when he was in high school, he was like so big and jacked, and like he could do a pec pop, and I was like, that is the peak of coolness. When your 18-year-old brother can do that, and I was 6. So I thought that was awesome, and he had weights in the garage, so I was always into it. I always wanted to do it, and I'd done a little bit of lifting before high school. But really, when I started high school, I started going to 24-hour fitness and reading as much as I could on the internet and talking to some of the older guys on the football team and trying to get tips from them. But the first big influence on how I thought about training in high school was a coach named Tony Chiarelli. And Tony Chiarelli is recently retired. At the time, he was a football coach and the throws coach at Huntington Beach High School, and then prior to that and after that at Newport Harbor High School, which is just down the road from me where I live now. And if you know anything about throwing, or you've been a high school thrower or a high school throws coach, Tony Chiarelli is a legend in that world. Like 3 or 4 200+ foot discus throwers, like 10 60-foot plus shot putters. He was the first coach for Kara Heads Lane, who was an Olympian in weightlifting. He was her high school coach. His daughter was a Pan Am team member, an Olympic Training Center resident. Both he and his wife are really highly accomplished USA weightlifting coaches. And every year, Tony would host what he called the World Class Throws Clinic. And that was a one-day event very early in the track season, right before the track season started. And I went to that during my freshman year of high school, and got to be coached by people like Jared Rome, Ian Waltz, Olympians. Mac Wilkins was there, Bill Starr was there one year. It was a really eye-opening experience to me, and I remember he would give us these packets that had all kind of different throwing drills and lifting stuff, and he was very much into Olympic-style weightlifting. So that's a lot of what it was about, but he would list the guys, their snatch and their clean and jerk, and these are big numbers. He had a high school guy who had the California state record holder in the discus, who had snatched right around 140 kilos in high school at like 95 kilos. body weight. So that was an unimaginable number to me as this sort of pudgy, freshman in high school. But I was training hard. I was going to the train 5-6 days a week, as long as I could, and I was just doing all kinds of stuff, doing more bodybuilder type of stuff, just doing what seemed right, watching the bigger guys at 24 Hour Fitness and trying to mimic what they were doing. And then Tony, starts showing us these medicine ball throws and all the different jumping and plyometric exercises and some special strength exercises, and talking about weightlifting and telling us that throwers, shot put and discus throwers, the best athletes in the world, these huge, explosive, coordinated, powerful athletes. And I really took that to heart. And I saw the way that they trained, that they jumped, they threw, they lifted heavy weights, they squatted hard, and that resonated with me. And that was like an immediate switch for me, that is what the base of athleticism is. Jumping, throwing, sprinting, these coordinated skipping and hopping drills that he would have them do, and then squatting big weights, snatch, clean, jerk, all that stuff. So I really took that to heart and started to shift my training towards that. And so Tony was the first big catalyst for me to begin to understand, the really important stuff in sport performance training. So I think so many high schoolers, they get caught up, they're reading bodybuilding magazines, or they're just wanting to look good when they go to the beach. That was never something that I was particularly interested in. I was just about performance, and I was so fortunate to get put on the right track in that early high school era by Tony, someone, he and I are still friends now, over 20 years later. So that's pretty cool, and someone I can trade ideas with about coaching. And he's coached Olympians and throwing so many great athletes, and just a real open guy to share information with so many other coaches, and to open young coaches and athletes' eyes like he did for me. Also, special shout out there to Coach Bill Pendleton, who was another really iconic throws coach, high school throwing coach in Orange County, who also helped me along the way. That takes me on to my next era, the college era. So I went to the University of California, Berkeley on a track scholarship to throw the shot put. Coming out of high school, I'd thrown the 12-pound shot put, 62 feet 6 inches, about 169 feet in the discus. So I go to Cal on a track scholarship, and this is the first time that I'm going to be coached. I'm going to have someone else write a program for me. And it went okay. I was actually only there for 2 years, on the team for 3 semesters. Long story short, a lot of people on our team quit or transferred, but that's not what this video is about. During my second year at Cal, as I was kind of becoming frustrated with some of the stuff that the coaches there had been having me do, and I didn't feel like I was getting as strong as I was expecting, because I'd seen these other throwers, especially guys at like UCLA, who had this legendary coach Art Venegas, another big influence on me, that they were showing up to college and getting so much stronger. I showed up to college squatting like 580 pounds, and 18 months later could squat like 615 pounds, which is a decent improvement. But when you're 18 and surging with natural testosterone, it's not that big of a deal. And we get into a different topic of how much more do I need to squat to throw far, all that kind of thing. But anyways, I had started reading a lot more, and information on the internet was getting to be a little bit easier to come by now, 2004, 2005, 2006. And I stumbled upon something called Westside Barbell. So between Westside Barbell, Elite FTS, and Joe DeFranco, those were my really big influences in this college era. And I remember coming back from summer break after my freshman year, going into the sophomore year, and trying to talk to our coaches about, hey, can I do this? Can I do the box squats? What about these bands and chains and all that stuff? And they kind of poo-pooed that idea and told me like, that's not athletic enough. That's not, that's not going to work unless you're on steroids, kind of thing. And I think there was some merit to what they said, and some lack of open-mindedness. I mean, our head coach was a bronze medalist in the decathlon from the 2000 Olympics. He was an incredible athlete. They obviously knew about training at a very high level, so I don't want to discount what they were saying. But as a 19-year-old kid who thought that he knew it all, I wanted to do that stuff. So anyways, after I left the track team there, I had about an 18-month period in the middle of college where I didn't do track, nor really train at all. I lived about 100 yards from the beach in Newport Beach and had a lot of fun, but that's not what this video is about either. So But during that time where I moved back to Southern California, I'm coaching high school football, I'm coaching track, I'm using West Side principles, conjugate periodization, West Side for Skinny Bastards, stuff from Joe DeFranco, using those ideas with the athletes that I was coaching, learning as much as I could about that. I mean, when Elite used to just release articles on Friday, they would have 4 or 5, like at the time, really good articles that would come out every Friday. I was waiting for every Friday to read all of those. I'd read every single article on Westside, every single article on DeFranco's website, all that stuff. Printing them out, highlighting them, making notes. Also, this is the time that I'm reading all the books that every strength coach tells you to read, like Super Training and Science and Practice of Strength Training, all that stuff that people say that they read, but I don't know that they actually understand it that well. But I'm reading all that stuff, and then I get back into doing track myself. I create this sort of modified West Side for Skinny Bastards plan and have a lot of success with it. My senior year of college, I was 6 feet, 285 pounds. I threw the 16-pound shot put, 19.42 meters, 63 feet, 10 inches, like a 35-inch vertical, ran 4.6, 4.7, 40, over a 10-foot standing broad jump. I was extremely, extremely powerful. Was it the best thing to throw the shot put the farthest? Because those general strength numbers, I'd benched 500 pounds. I was box squatting 650, 675. Those general strength numbers were much higher than what my sport result was. And again, topic for a different video, balancing general strength and special strength. Check out the Sport Performance Pillars video for that, particularly the Understanding Specificity video. But I was so into that stuff, consuming all of that, and using it with 80 high school football players that I coached every day too. So I was getting to do a lot of trial and error, both on myself and with those guys, and that was a huge formative part of my understanding of training, of beginning to understand periodization, structure, different maximal strength, speed, all that type of stuff. How to incorporate plyometrics to maybe begin to think more critically about what I was doing. I wasn't doing Olympic weightlifting movements as a thrower, which was very, very rare. I was squatting heavy, benching heavy, jumping and sprinting and throwing, of course, and I was extremely explosive from doing that. This isn't a video about if that was the best training or not, but that was a huge influence on my development as a coach during that time. That takes us into phase 1 of Juggernaut. So I graduate college in 2009. In May of 2009, Juggernaut opened in September 2009. So I was right into it. Still throwing the shot put at that time. My then coach, a great man named Len Blutrick, passed away from cancer right when I started Juggernaut. So at this point I was without a coach, but he really coached what I did in the ring. I was writing all my own lifting and all that stuff. So I'm continuing to try and train. I'm still doing the same West Side type of training, a lot of bands, a lot of chains, changing exercises every week. And I had a friend, a guy named Bob Eilenfeld. If you may have read him on Elite FTS under the pen name The Angry Coach. He and I had become friends then, and he reached out to me to say, he's like, oh, I was talking to this guy, James Smith. I'm not going to do my Bob impression. Just hear this in an incredibly thick Long Island accent from a very angry Long Islander. So he tells me that a guy named James Smith, who he was friends with, who was a well-respected coach, told him, he's like, oh, that Chad Smith guy? He's like, yeah. He's like, oh yeah, he trains like a fucking idiot. And Bob relayed that to me, and I don't know that that's how James said it, but that's how Bob relayed it in his Bob way. And I was kind of thinking, like, what does this guy know? He hasn't coached any throwers. I can look how much I can bench and how much I can squat and how high I can jump, all that stuff. And I took some offense to it, but then Bob connected James and I on a phone call, and he started, James kind of broke it down to me this way. He said, well, who's someone that you look up to as a thrower? I think I said Reese Hoffa. And I had access to this chart that had Reese Hoffa's, all his lifts and jumps and different throws throughout his college career onto when he threw his PR, 22.43 meters, like 74 feet. Great shot putter, multiple-time Olympian, great coach, Don Babbitt, University of Georgia. So I had this chart, and James like, okay, well, can you bench more than him? I could. Could you squat more than him? I could. Could you jump higher? Yeah. Run faster? Yeah. Stand throw further? Yep. Can you throw the shot put further than it? Nope. And that was the moment where it began to click that that general strength stuff I did had its place, but was not the be-all, end-all of sport performance. So James begins explaining the work of Dr. Anatoly Bondarchuk to me, and the priority of general strength versus special strength, of sport practice versus weights, all that kind of thing. And I got what he was saying, but not enough to go ahead and write that type of program for myself, and he didn't offer to write it for me. So I wasn't making that transition because I didn't want to get caught in a place of, well, now my general strength is lower, but my special strength isn't that much higher, and I just wouldn't have found a happy medium. But that was definitely a turning point for me in the way that I thought about training and sport performance. Fast forward another year and a half from that, and I have the opportunity to hire James as a coach at Juggernaut, and did that in mid-2011. And that time from mid-2011 to late 2012, working with James on a daily basis was by far the most influential time in my life and development as a coach, because I got to see James take so much of that work that people talk about, like super training, like science and practice of strength training, Zatsarovsky, Michael Yessis, Bondarchuk, all that kind of stuff that's so complicated seeming when you read it in these translated texts. And I got to see him put it into practice and sit there and talk to him about it and why he was doing those things. And so much of it became so simple and so intuitive seeming to me at that point. So that phase one of Juggernaut, James Smith, without a doubt, most influential, and he was my translator for Bondarchuk, for Zatsarovsky, for Yessis, for Charlie Francis stuff, coaches who, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants here, but James was the one who brought that information to me and really created a paradigm shift in the way that I thought about coaching. This is also the time that I'm competing in powerlifting, 2010, 2011, 2012. In that time, I broke the American record in the squat. In the 140 kilo class, the 308s, I squatted 411 kilos, 905 in reps, weighing about 305. I won Strongman Nationals, became a professional strongman in that time. So I'd made a big shift away from the West Side stuff through the influence of James, and giving me a deeper understanding of the role of sport practice, a truer understanding of specificity, a better understanding of phase potentiation, periodization strategies. So, forever grateful to James. Global Sport Concepts is his company. Go check it out. Governing Dynamics of Coaching, Applied Speed Training Manual, tons of great stuff from James. Forever indebted to him. That takes us to phase two of Juggernaut. I'd say this is 2013 to now. So in the middle of 2013, I was competing in powerlifting, competing in strongman, back and forth. The first 5 months of 2013, I did my first pro strongman contest, the LA Fit Expo, then squad 700 for 10 in wraps in the animal cage, and then a powerlifting meet, and then another strongman contest, and then another powerlifting meet, all in the first 5 months of 2013. I would not suggest that, because then in the 6th month, herniated discs, out for a while. That moment also created kind of a BCAD situation in my development as a coach, because so much of the stuff that I'd kind of taken for granted, of just being healthy and moving well, I had to, begin to address physical therapy, all that kind of stuff. So this next phase, the stuff that became the people who became the most influential to me are first Dr. Quinn Hennock. Through that rehab time, he was invaluable to me. I was able to take ideas from Quinn, sport performance training ideas from James, and the way we organized a lot of athletes' programs, particularly with the concept of consolidation of stressors, apply those to my rehab very, very successfully. My best total pre-back injury was 2170, and then I came back in my first meet not surgery, but injury, my first meet post back injury, and came back for a 2248 total in the first meet. So we did a really good job of rehab. So Quinn opening my eyes up to a lot of ideas from the physical therapy world, but understanding how to frame them around, true performance training and strength training. right about that time as well, I meet Dr. Mike Israetel, who so many of the ideas that I'd come to understand through trial and error, through reading, through some just kind of intuitive understanding of coaching and all this stuff, he was able to formalize to me. My degree is in history. It's not in sport physiology or kinesiology or exercise science or anything like that. So I had all of these ideas, and it turned out that the large majority of them were really kind of right on track with sports science stuff, but I didn't know that they were that. So talking with Mike, he was able to add that extra piece and a little bit deeper principled understanding of so much of the stuff we do there. And he had a huge influence on the way that I train for powerlifting and coach powerlifters. Dr. James Hoffman, also of Renaissance Periodization, on the sport performance side, as I continue to coach football players and jiu-jitsu and bobsledders and hammer throwers and shot putters and all that stuff. James has been a great sounding board, and we've had great conversations about sport training. And then finally, Max Ada, watching Max coach the Team Juggernaut weightlifters and the powerlifters that he coaches, to be able to take the principles and see how they're applied to weightlifting, and just give them a new perspective and how I can tweak them to the powerlifters that I coach and the other athletes that I coach. So those are the coaches for me: high school era, Tony Chiarelli; college era, my West Side time, so really Joe DeFranco and Louis Simmons being the big ones there. The early Juggernaut days, James Smith, far and away, they stand out, and through him gaining such deeper understanding of people like Anatoly Bondarchuk and Charlie Francis. And then in the more modern Juggernaut era, Dr. Quinn Hennock, Dr. James Hoffman, Dr. Mike Israetel, and Max Ada. So those are the coaches that have influenced me the most. In the comments, let me know the coaches that have influenced you the most, the books that you like. If you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Visit jtsstrength.com for all of our apparel, books, online coaching. Download the Juggernaut AI app and get totally customized programming for you, from my brain into your phone, adapting every single day to the feedback that you give it. The most customized, most individualized program that you can get, honestly, from a person or a handsome robot. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.